right now, our currency has been stable for about 18 months or thereabout. It has been relatively stable. That would give investors confidence that, okay, yes, because investors were also looking at your currency, they are looking at your administration, that can they trust your administration? Can they say that in the next 8 years, this administration would remain relatively stable? Nothing, we will not wake up to any shocker. So I think the reforms and every other thing that is put in place for this year, and if every other thing that has been put in place or that's been established for this year goes on, we follow it to the letter, I believe that the capital market will really boom.
This is Souq Business Landscape. NGX closed higher lows yesterday as market capitalization rose by 6.88 billion. The Nigerian Exchange closed Wednesday's trading section on a positive note as marginal equity gains lifted total market capitalization by 6.88 billion amid broad-based buying interest across key sectors of the market. At the close of trading, total market capitalization rose by 106.44 trillion naira, up from 106.43 trillion recorded in the previous section. The all-share index edged higher by 10.77 points or 0.01% to close at 166,267.6 compared to 166,256.83 on Tuesday. Now, this reflects cautious investor sentiment. Market activity was mixed. A total of 822.76 million shares valued at 24.93 billion naira were exchanged in 43,514 deals. This represented a 3% increase in trading volume and a 25% rise in turnovers, while the number of deals declined by 4% compared with the previous section. Analysts say this season reflected selective positioning rather than broad risk appetite. This is one of the beautiful highlights of 2025 for those that are looking at the exchange, whether you're investing or just studying it. It was a very, very beautiful 2025 for the exchange last year. Are we expecting the same momentum for 2026?
Well, since you are not a player, if you are playing, you will know that the momentum is getting higher and getting bigger really by the day. Because there's a whole lot of opportunity that is happening in Nigeria at the moment. And I think it's the best market so far, globally, not just in Africa. Because there's no market today that has the kind of return that the Nigerian market is offering. And even stocks that you don't even believe that they should be doing as much, they are doing excellently well. And I think thanks also to the fact that NGX is now properly very structured, regulatory environment is okay, and there's also the confidence of the investor, especially with all the reforms that is going on within the system. So these are things that, of course, will always whip investor sentiments.
Okay, we've come a long way in the end. It was Nigerian Stock Exchange before. It was even a group before, from the days of Ndi Okereke to Oscar Onyema to the present administration. Are we going to look at government's policies or look at market stabilization to see or say, okay, good and fine, these are the things that have given the market this bite? Is it just time or it's just a matter of policies of government that are really shaping up this institution?
Yeah, policies and reforms. We have to also, let me toe the line of doctor. Let's give honor to whom honor is due. We have to thank this administration with the policies and reforms that they have put in place. I think that's one of the things that is actually yielding profit that we can see now. The reforms are actually, helping some of these institutions to sit up and come up. It's bringing, it's boosting investor confidence, because right now our currency has been stable for about 18 months or thereabout. It has been relatively stable. That would give investors confidence that, okay, yes, because investors were also looking at your currency, they are looking at your administration, that can they trust your administration? Can they say that in the next 8 years, this administration would remain relatively stable. Nothing, we will not wake up to any shocker. So I think the reforms and every other thing that is put in place for this year, and if every other thing that has been put in place or that's been established for this year goes on, we follow it to the letter, I believe that the capital market will really boom.
Okay, capital market really booming. Doc, let's ask this question off the table. We've not seen ways and means in the last 2 years.
Well, of course, like this current regime says that they are going to employ so much unorthodox means in terms of financing their budget. I remember that a journalist was asking the finance minister in Davos 2 days ago about Nigerian debt to a revenue ratio that he felt that was so high, and was asking the minister if they were still willing to borrow, given the fact, and he said the administration is downplaying borrowing to a very large extent. And I think in that interview, the reporter specifically mentioned and said, "Are you going the way of Eurobond again this year?" And he said, "Well, I can't say for now, because it will depend on what happens as the year progresses. That what the government is actually targeting is that they don't want to borrow more because the reforms are working, finances are coming, and they are trying as much as possible to reduce borrowing." And so to that extent, we see that the fiscal policies of this regime has yielded some very positive results. And so there's no need regime going to do the ways and the means. And you remember that what actually led to the ways and the means was the fact that we were in a certain we're walking a certain tightrope. And I think these are the things that many analysts really never acknowledge, because Nigerians, we are only very quick to condemn people, but we also don't look at the context in which some certain things happen. Now, when you look at the context in which the ways and means came to be, you will realize that we just came out of a financial crisis between 2009 to 2015. And then, of course, that was also supported by a dip in the price of oil, given the geopolitics at that time. And when the oil was dipped, the state even couldn't pay. And then the new regime that came in has to spend a whole lot to see how to ensure that salaries were not owed, even at state level. Because at a certain point in our history, toward 2016, some states were owing 9 months, 16 months that they could not pay. And so they have to experience bailout on 3 different occasions. And then, of course, no sufficient revenue was coming from oil. And there, of course, we're also not able to meet the quota that we were producing of crude, so money was not coming. Now, we saw that immediately that was happening and government was thinking of recovery, then COVID came. During COVID-19, for about 6 months in 2020, the government could not receive a single dime, even in terms of oil export, because the whole world was shut down. But then, of course, there was some demurrage that government was paying. And so some analysts valued that at that point, we were actually having minus $15 per barrel at that point. And then government was able to sustain operations, paying staff salary. We're also able to do some few capital projects here and there between that 2020 to 2023. That was the fiscal environment in which those decisions were taken. And I think we must not lose sight of the fact that people don't just deliberately say, "Oh, we want to do ways and means." They were conditioned to do ways and means. And don't also forget that twice in that same period, government attempted to see, let's even take subsidy away from petrol. And of course, there were mass resistance. Labor didn't want that to happen. So protest was everywhere. They were asking government to fix the refinery before subsidy would be removed. Government didn't have money to fix the refinery. They had bills to pay. So all these conditions were the environment in which the ways and the means became like what was normal. Because if government was not able to pay at that time, the same people who are the activists who are protesting in the TV and radio station will still be the same people who will be condemning the government that, oh, they are not paying workers. But people think that government just pluck money. They can't pluck money. So what led to the ways and means was the environment that the government found itself at that material point in time. And so when this regime came in 2003 and they say subsidy was no longer necessary, and they had the courage to take it off, and sure, you remember during his campaign, he actually said that even if Labour is going to protest for 2 years, he will take it down. And this is what actually had happened with all the protests here and there. But now we have seen that the price of petrol is now market driven. So government is receiving more money. And we can see that in the FAC allocation that comes every month. And states are getting better money.
Okay.
So in that environment, I don't think ways and means will become an option. And that's why you see what government is trying to do is to see how to use the treasury bill, use the bonds, whether local or foreign, to raise funds, which of course they are a longer term than going to commercial bank to borrow. So you can also see that there are reports that, of course, some commercial bank already say, no, government is no longer taking loans from us because they have seen some unconventional methods to raise funds to run their project. And I think we should commend the government for the effort so far.